Okay, so we are now recording. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm Baroness Katerina. I'm going to be the moderator for the panel tonight, and I will introduce our panel peeps to you real quick, although I think probably most everybody on here knows everybody, but you know, somebody comes back and watches the video later, they'll know who you guys are. We have their Excellencies Baron Elaine and Baroness Kat from the Steps with us. We have Lady Volka. And Lady Volka, what is your significant other's name? I apologize.
Lord Magnus.
Magnus. Okay. Hi, Magnus. Glad you could join us. And then we have Mistress Elena and Master Brian with us as well. And Don Orazio. So they are all the panel members. This was actually Lady Volka's brainchild. We were talking on one of the other meetings and kind of got on this topic, and I was like, wow, we should really do a roundtable on this. So she helped recruit all these wonderful people to come and talk to you guys. So first question I'm going to throw out to their Excellencies of the Steps. Your Excellencies, why is it important to use non-traditional recruiting methods when recruiting young people, and what are some non-traditional methods that you have used?
That is a great question.
So the SCA, we do a lot of things to recreate the past, and sometimes our methods of recruitment are also stuck in the past, but it doesn't have to be that way. We do things that have worked before, and then the numbers kind of show if it works or not, and there's a downward trend. But we feel like you should find new ways to engage with people and reach out to people in ways that are more effective. So it's a good time to explore different areas, maybe do things that we haven't done before, to try to gather, to gain a following with new people. Like try new things, social media, to try to reach out to people who are younger, or to go do demos in other places besides conventions, like maybe a hockey game or something like that. But I think we kind of try to fit our recruitment into a box, but we should really open our minds to different opportunities.
Yeah, and especially when we're trying to reach out to a new demographic, the millennials and Gen Z folks, we definitely want to try and meet them where they are. So some of the traditional methods of recruiting that we use in the past, meeting at friend fairs or at Boy Scout demos, that sort of thing, they're really oversaturated because we do the same thing year after year. So we've met a lot of people that we're gonna be able to recruit from those things. So we want to be able to definitely look at different aspects to attract new people. Some places that we've gotten new members from, like Courtney said, we had a very successful demo at a hockey game this January. We also have gotten folks from Lightsaber, LARP groups, some other non-traditional places that we've gotten folks from. We started a Discord channel, and we were able to attract some folks on Discord because there's a lot of folks who don't use Facebook anymore, especially that younger demographic. And then one of the things we really believe in as landed nobility is to be able to empower our officers and support our officers to be able to do the things that they want to do for that outreach. So, for example, Lady Volka, her actual job is with social media, and we were able to happily use her skills and expertise to improve our outreach online. I definitely would like to encourage you to talk about some of the things you've done.
Definitely. Yeah, I think we will be asking some questions. In fact, I think my next question is for Lady Volka. So thank you for sharing, Your Excellencies. Okay. So Lady Volka, what social media channels outside of Facebook should we use to try to recruit and retain young people? I know Her Excellency already mentioned Discord. Are there others that you can think of?
Yeah, Discord's super good. I don't have as much experience with that, though. That'd be a better question for Don Orazio. Oh, Sir Arthur. He just because the SCA is so visual, I really like Instagram, and especially Instagram is very good for tags. So you can find things that are tangential, so you don't specifically have to search SCA. Someone can search like the medieval tag and still find you. A lot of young people like Twitter. I don't personally use Twitter, but a lot of people in my demographic do. And then TikTok is the new big thing. But they're still finding out like TikTok is. Some like my company mundanely that I work for is trying to get into TikTok, but they're still finding out what they want to do with companies and organizations. So if you get on there, just be aware that that is still changing. I like Instagram though. I think Instagram is great because people still go on there with the intent to explore. And then the biggest one I wish that we had was YouTube. It's the second largest search engine on the internet behind Google. And depending on which stat you happen to look at which day, the third most visited website. So I think the fact that we don't really use it, and if we do use it, we're not really tagging our videos correctly, is not helping us at all, and it can be helping us a lot.
Yeah.
Just to add another point, sometimes we're comfortable with what we're comfortable with online, and so if we're not comfortable with it, we find other people who are more familiar with whatever the medium is, and then they can go and run it. Not everyone has to do everything, but it's better to have more options and limited.
Yeah, so for example, I do the STEP social media, but because I don't really, I'm not very invested in Twitter, once we're ready to take that step, we will have another social media deputy who does the Twitter, because I can't devote so much time to Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and Twitter. It's not feasible. So you kind of have to spread the love.
I think new people, more people, like they said, more people are specialized in those areas. And you find someone in a younger demographic, they could be, I have my own YouTube channel, I'm used to doing this, or I have my own Twitter, I'm used to doing this, would really help out.
Definitely, yeah.
I think an important part too when branching out into other social media platforms is to make sure that you're still maintaining, you still want your information to be very centralized in access. And so as you're pushing out new content, whether it's, new videos on YouTube, new pictures and short clips on Instagram, that the base knowledge for, oh, hey, there's this cool thing, where am I being directed to, is concise and centralized for all your platforms. So in Bringla, we're trying really hard to make that the website, because we weren't on WordPress and it was harder to use. It sort of all ended up moving to Facebook, and Facebook is not a good medium for information dissemination. And so now we're trying to retrain the group to focus on the website, and then as we then expand out into these other platforms, being able to be hey, here's just a cool thing, here's a fun clip, here's somebody's cool art, okay, here's where you go learn about it. So it's easy for people to get that information.
That's cool. Yeah, I like that approach. That's really smart. And I think we have become very dependent on Facebook just because a lot of our members are on it, and it, is a little easy for us to rely on. So I can see where you would have to retrain people.
It's so bad for information.
Yeah. No,
And one of the drawbacks to Facebook that we're seeing more and more, one, we already knew that a lot of our older members weren't on Facebook, but a lot of the really young potential members are also not getting on Facebook. Mostly your Zennials are not using Facebook as much. So we've got to be able to redirect them to, as Don Orazio said, a centralized hub of information.
That makes sense. Orazio, can you speak to us about the success that Bringalot has had with using Discord, or some of the other mediums that your group is using?
Sure. And first, shout out to Lady Kolfina and Kira daughter, who's runs our Discord. She, fought tooth and nail to finally get us on Discord, and then has basically been a one-woman army running it. So if we sort of have a more extended conversation just about social media, which could be a whole other thing, she'd be a great person to talk to. But one of the main things that we focused on with Discord is just starting by building the framework and then letting people grow into it. For a long time, we fought really hard to get a Discord, and then there wasn't a whole lot of activity on it. There were a couple people, it would pop up for a day where 6 messages would be exchanged, and then it would go away. But one of our primary thoughts has been, make the space, and then people will fill it if it's something useful. And so, we were very lucky in that when basically everything shut down, we had a place to immediately start to move people towards. And so, and especially even as Discord started expanding some of its functions, hey, we're going to do video now. Hey, you can stream now. All these different things during the pandemic. It was okay, cool. So I've been in a Scribble night where I turned my camera down at my desk and did calligraphy, and somebody else turned their camera down and was doing art. And it's all right, we're still doing Scribble night. And it's basically the same thing that it is at most Scribble nights. No one's talking. We're all working on our art. And then somebody goes, dang it, this thing happened. It's exactly like normal Scribble night. But so I think one of the main focus is just make sure that the platform that you're using matches what you're trying to use it for. So we never looked at Discord as a new place for putting events out, that sort of thing. We use an app called Zapier, which we have linked between our Facebook and our Discord. So there's a particular chat room in our Discord where it auto posts every post from our Facebook group into Discord, which then allows people to look at whatever's being posted in the group in chronological order, which is nice. But it's, hey, here's, if people aren't on Facebook, you can get all the announcements from Facebook here. Okay, the rest of it is just for chat rooms and for all the Scribble people to post random things that they're finding online, and basically allow people to ungunk the main Facebook groups, as well as, with pinned posts in each of those rooms, be able to quickly find the Facebook groups, because, I guess the last main thing in terms of everything being on Facebook is that it is really hard to know where to look to find all of the Facebook groups. I'm still not sure that I've uncovered all of the Bringwalad guild groups. And so being able to, have just the Leatherworkers Guild, and then there's that one Leatherworkers Guild Facebook group. They're not, super active, but there's a lot of resources there, and it's just pinned in Discord. And so our thought was, instead of having sort of this long hallway, if I can probably mince a metaphor, with a bunch of closed, hidden doors, it's just a big open room where you can see the groups of people talking and choose to go over and join a group. And it's a lot easier to navigate.
Yeah, that's cool. That makes a lot of sense.
I also like that Discord allows for I feel like it's a more authentic conversation between people, as opposed to, I've posted a thing and we'll see what happens. I feel like so long as there are other people in the room, you do get more of that in-person talk. So it's nice. It's a nice vehicle for that.
Also,
Yeah.
the chat room kind of feel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is nice. And that's something we don't have on Facebook. So
So I think it's also important to remember, Discord has worked relatively well for us. There's still some people that aren't super into Discord in our barony, and so I'd say it's a mostly a success. But Discord is probably not the platform for every group, and so it's trying things out. It's all right, this isn't really working. Where else can we go and get this function, and then be able to have our group expand into that.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure, it depends on what the people in your area are doing. So it's going to take some trial and error to get you there. So,
Hmm.
Yeah, I would also say that it's patience and active participation. Because something I picked up on Balka and from Orazio is that it's not a passive, oh, hey, we have a Twitter. It's somebody actively being there and using the platform and growing the platform and seeing if it becomes something that is adopted or not within the group. Having the patience to see if it will, and then if it doesn't. But as Orazio said, social media could be a whole other thing.
Yeah, actually,
Oh,
I
yeah.
want to mention one more in terms of less social media and more just a recruiting platform. Is a year and a half ago, maybe, we got a meetup subscription for our local group, and honestly haven't been as diligent about it as we could be. But we've gotten, I think, 4 or 5 like active members, and not within like, they're not particularly young members either. It's just people that you probably never would have found otherwise, because they're not actively looking, to go back to what their excellency said. They're not actively going to conventions. They're not actively involved with, they don't have kids and scouts, whatever it is. They were just looking for something, and they're like, oh, hey, there's this medieval group who's having drinks at a pub to talk about their group. Let's go see what that's about.
Mm-hmm.
Or just randomly showed up to one of our Newcomers Academy meetings. And so, we were even talking in a financial committee meeting the other day. It was like, hey, we can't meet right now. Do we want to turn this off? And, my thought is, but all those people that are still subscribed to that, like, you're building that base so that when things start back up, you can start posting, hey, we're doing things. And all those people who are already subscribed to the group are getting messages.
Yep.
And that's the same sort of thing with a Twitter, with an Instagram, with, a Pinterest board, anything like that. If it's run by the group, the only thing sadder than a group not having those things is the group having those things and it not being updated, because it looks real bad.
Yeah, you definitely have to have someone dedicated to monitoring all of that. Volka, did you have something to add?
Yeah, with millennials and young people especially, this is literally something we have studied in university for this purpose of selling to young people and recruiting young people. The thing that they are looking for when they go to your page on social media is that you have been humanized. So like the whole point of having a Facebook or the Instagram or whatever, when they message you, is to show that you're a real person. So like when I talk to newcomers through our Facebook or through any channel, I sign my name and I give them both my Monday name and SCA name, so that when they show up, they can be like, I don't know, I talked to this Valka, Vika, and someone can be like, oh, that's her. And so she's already talked to me, so she feels comfortable coming in. So it's a business account, but you're not there to be business professional. You're there to be their friend.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of more on the retention side. If you're a newcomer and you're coming in, you don't really know anyone, but things like social media, it helps build a community more, because you get to talk more often. I think a lot of places, they have the mindset that ANS or whatever is once a month, or whatever activity is once a month, and there's not enough activity going on in between all those moments. But with different chats or different social media mediums, then there's things going on all the time, and that builds a better community, and that allows people like who are new to learn more about us and to find different ways to be involved.
Build relationships even if they're not able to go every weeknight or
Right now, we can't go
yeah,
anywhere.
right now we
Right now we
anywhere.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Namron's actually been doing some just Zoom meetups for people to talk, and we've been introduced to several newer, younger people, and so that's good, because one was looking for a ride to an event, and Orlando was like, hey, we've got room. And so now, I mean, we've never met her in person, but we've spent a lot of time with her in these Zoom things online, so you just get to know people, and then yeah, it's another way to recruit and retain.
Yeah, and stuff is part of the culture. Like you had told my parents, like, oh yeah, a bunch of people met up and they had never met each other. That's like very common for my parents' generation. But for me, that's how I get abducted. I'm not going anywhere with anyone who I've never met before. So
Right.
part of the whole young people thing is like, we've been told our whole lives, don't meet strangers on the internet in person. And now we're saying, hey, you only met us on the internet, get in our car. So
I can see that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's also, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to mention, and especially looking at a future eventuality when we get to start doing things again, there's a lot of members fairly who look at practice, guild meetings, events as like, this is my chance to go see my friends. But if you can get them involved online when they're at home and don't have anything to do, then they're more willing to engage with people that they don't know. And especially if it's being well moderated and like kept positive, that's an opportunity for them to start to build those relationships so that they want to engage with them at events and are more willing to, help bring them into the baronial shire, whatever level group that you have, your household, not recruiting, but like just to meet people. But that's the kind of thing, because I've, heard plenty of times through several different groups is like, oh, I got involved, but everyone just seemed to already know each other and I didn't really know where my place was. And so this really promising person that was super excited falls off after a couple weeks because, maybe the one person that they'd met so far, either maybe that person got busy and wasn't there or didn't have the energy to engage. Like, you have to have a lot of people who are willing and able to be like the landing spot for newcomers.
Definitely. Yeah. It makes a big difference if, they can go to practice or whatever, and there's 3 or 4 people that they see that they know, and they're less likely to, like you said, drop off the face of the earth versus, oh, that one person that I had made contact with isn't here and now I feel real awkward. So okay, so let's see, what do we want to talk about next? Okay, so Mistress Elena, can you tell us a little bit about organizing demos and how you structure them to get people more involved?
So I think that one thing that we as a society could do is look at demos differently. And demos for me are one of those I could talk for more than an hour on. But I think that we need to look at demos as we're sharing our geek thing, where we are just people. I am not Mistress Elena. I'm just Elena who really likes this thing. And that's a really important place to be. But also it's working on name recognition. Because if we are at that anime convention every year, people will be like, oh yeah, SCA, they're the ones with like all the yarn things that they were doing. So it's fixing in the mind that we are a thing that will exist for more. We're not a flash in the pan organization, but for people who've never heard of us before, they don't necessarily know that. So it's knowing how to distill us into 140 characters or less, which all of us have a hard time with, I think. If you have made it this far into society, it's very difficult to say what we do in a way that doesn't make people's eyes glaze over. So finding your your catch-all, this is what we do.
Your elevator speech.
Yeah, your elevator speech,
Mm-hmm.
having that. And also building community. So I feel like our types of nerds are Venn diagrams of nerddom. And just because that convention is a literature convention doesn't mean that some of those people don't Venn diagram with us, or that anime convention. So it's finding a way to not only be there as a fan table or to show off, but also finding a way to engage in that community to show that I'm not trying to just like be a parasite, but I'm actively involved. Seeing if you can sponsor a couple of panels or workshops. I think one of the best things that we can do is get into a position with a demo where it is interactive, because we are an interactive society. So showing somebody weaving over in the corner is not going to be as engaging as putting the loom in someone's lap and being like, no, here, try the thing. So active engagement is also another huge thing that I think that we can work on when it comes to demonstrations. I realize that's like one huge long run-on sentence, but I have feels about demos.
Totally understand and agree with you. Namron, when we do medieval fair, we have lots of hands-on stuff for that reason. I think Magnus and Orazio both had something they wanted to add.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to, sort of, and this is a lot of other people's experiences with demos, but so we've done Sherwood for the last, I'm going to say 1.5 years, because the season got cut short this spring. But the first year we only were allowed to do A&S stuff, which was honestly really cool, because our first newcomers class was a lot of A&S focused people, which is just a really fun experience considering how often demos are focused on fighting. But I don't think we quite found our legs with getting people to interact with those things as much yet. And there was a huge difference this last year when we started adding fighting, because we honestly wouldn't fight that much. I mean, sometimes it would be like Robert Debray and myself were the only 2 people there, and so I guess we're doing something cut and thrusty. Marshals, don't ask what happened.
Yeah.
Like the number of bruises I got from Wilhelm from cut and thrust were unreasonable. But the difference of like then, keeping my mask on and being able to put a sword in someone's hand and be like, no, like I'll show you how much you have to stab for it to count. Like the first time having someone guide their hand and be like, nope, that's it. And then when you see someone like reel back, be like, I'm just gonna step back. But being able to have that discussion and have someone's like the weapon in their hand, we had several people find us again, even though we weren't able to like reach out to them because we never got their information, going like, I just had to get involved. And several of them where we'd also like, we made sure that if we were fighting, there was also at least 1 or 2 people ringside just talking with people. And so several of them, the ways that we got them to stay was when they found us, they were able to immediately start up those conversations again with people who were like, oh yeah, no, I remember you from like, what was it, week 3? And it makes a big difference going, you're recognized versus,
Yeah.
who are you, pleb?
Yeah,
Whack-a-night,
definitely.
whack-a-dawn. I love it.
Yes, Magnus?
I really like what everyone was saying about the active participation. What I'm saying right here will apply to other areas, but I'm a heavy fighter, so this is in the context of heavy fighting. But feel free to apply this everywhere else. But when we do heavy fighting demos, but per rule, and I might be slightly wrong with this, we're not allowed to have a new participants fight, which is obvious because they have to put on armor and stuff. I think something we could do that would really be helpful is if we're doing heavy fighting demos, we should have like the fencing mask and foam boppers and have people, sign the waiver at a demo and say, hey, take this foam bopper. You're not going to hurt anyone with a foam bopper, especially if they have a helmet on, and let them hit you. I have a friend right now that I've been training with, and we do a lot of foam fighting. And if you can do something lowering the bar instead of just armoring someone and doing full retain combat, starting with like a bopper, I think is a great entry. Because then it, like you said, then it goes from watching people fight and being interested, then it's real. It's the swords in their hand. They swung at you, they hit you, it's real to them versus, just watching it. As fun as watching demos is, fighting, I love watching people fight. I like fighting a lot more.
Yeah.
Within the context of heavy, I'm sure in the rapier, I don't know how that would play over with the boppers, but that's just something I've always thought that when we have a demo, where we have something with a new fighter, we put them in armor and they go straight into hand combat. I think being able to lower that bar and starting at like a foam boffer would be something a lot more. That's not foam fighting is we see that in the youth. It's not a part of our culture a lot. I do a lot of foam fighting just for training, and I really enjoy it. I think that's something that would really contribute to expanding the heavy fighting field because it lowers that bar of entry. It makes it a lot easier to start. You don't need elbow pads. Just put on I would recommend a fencing mask, something like that. I know that would have to change official rules and stuff, but that's just an idea.
No, we can
I have.
do the fight in that.
There are ways to do that too without having to change rules by simply like, if you change what the actual SCA participant is holding. Like I know that we did some of that with boffer weapons, but it was like, I took sword and dagger and I was like, I'm just going to try and stop you from hitting me. And eventually I'm going to let you hit me so you feel good. But like, just like, let them feel like they're fighting. I'm not going to try and stab you, or I might just, do some weird disengage thing and have the dagger around your neck to make it look good. But, being able to do something like that versus actual SCA fighting, which, they definitely can't do. That's not good.
Right.
It's too much liability. Nobody wants that. But making people feel involved.
Mm-hmm. We had a line of folks and we had them sign a waiver and we did whack a night at A-Kon. There are ways to do it. You just have to follow the rules. And we had a guy in full armor, had the shield, and we talked to them.
Smack a Viking.
Smack a Viking because he wasn't in it. But
We had Miles with a microphone and me as the lawyer standing there with the clipboard and waivers. Sign the waiver, pick up the sword, go hit the guy. Sign the waiver, pick up the sword, go hit the guy.
And we had this huge crowd, and there were several of us with SCA cards and, essentially forming the perimeter, like half martial, half like, hey, would you like to try? And that worked out really well. And it was in the middle of the convention. It was in the middle of A-Kon. And people came up to us afterwards because we were the ones doing that thing. So that participatory nature is really what I think our demos should focus on, because we're creating that brand and we're selling ourselves. But we have, like, part of my elevator pitch is that we are a Renaissance festival where you get to participate as much as you want. Like, you get to be that person as much as you want. So I need to actually show them they can when I'm doing a demo. I don't need to just tell, like, show by do.
Yep.
And a little bit more in the sausage making side in terms of demos, that also means you have to take a little bit of extra time to build those relationships with whoever's hosting the venue, because you get more opportunities to do the panels, do the demonstration. Like Sherwood, we were coming into an established event where they already had fighting groups, and like we didn't do fighting the first year because they were worried about us, the other fighting groups, feeling like we were, coming into their territory, especially as a vendor group. We weren't trying to make any money. We were spending all our time there being another demonstration for Sherwood for free because we just wanted to be able to get exposure. And, eventually we went through that entire year. We're like, yeah, no, that's fine. We can do that. And then the very last week of the first year, the B&B kind of go around to all the other fighting groups, like, hey, would y'all mind if we started doing a couple fighting demos? Not at the same time, of course. We want to respect your time, and maybe we can figure out some collab in the future. And they're like, oh, the SCA, how are you here and not fighting?
Right.
Yeah.
But it was just, let's take the hit for the first year. Let's find a new way to do demos, and then it builds a lot of opportunities for the future.
Yeah, it's building those community partnerships. I know Ivo's got his hand up, poor guy.
Ivo, did you have something to add?
I just had a question. I use Discord-ish. If I wanted to learn more, who would I talk to? Because a lot of what you're saying I can't interlace with what I know of Discord. So how do I make up the information gap there? Who do I talk to?
Thank you.
Whoever. I'm turning the mic off.
I have a selfish answer. and that is if you want to come join the Bringwell Discord. One, we have several like info pages of, hey, here's how our Discord works, and here's how you can navigate Discord. And then
Drop
also,
the address in the chat. Answer solved. No problem.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go.
Yeah, their layout, their setup is really good. I'm in their Discord. All the cool kids are.
And also,
I
we
have nothing. Yeah.
We have
I have
several
nothing to add to the substantive conversation here. This is outside my field of expertise, but I heard Discord and it went right over my head, and I'm like, okay, something I can try and learn.
There
we have some admins too. I'm an admin, but I'm not nearly this good, but actually have the notifications where if anyone says anything in the chat, they check it. So also if you just ask questions, there are people just there either to direct you to the right page or to answer your questions about how to use things.
Cool. I wanted to add one other thing that we've done at Medieval Fair. As Namrod and Wiesenfeuer, you guys are talking about hands-on stuff. Several years in a row, we had a combat archery tent that was set up just with like heads with the helmets. And then anybody from, around did the same thing. Sign the waiver. Here's the bow, go shoot the guy. And they really liked that a lot. That was something fun that they could do and get their, get involved and be a part of the demo. But so we talked quite a bit about running demos, but now I'd like to switch. No, you're good. Don't apologize. But I'd like to switch our focus a little bit and talk about, okay, so you've had your demo and you've got some new people that are interested. Elena, what do you typically do next after you've got these people that are interested to keep them engaged and retain them?
So one aspect I didn't actually talk about in the running is to make sure that you have a way of collecting their information. Really, it's their name, an email address, and a zip code, because they may not be yours. And that really tends to follow under hospitalers, but that can be anyone. Reaching out to them, letting them know what next things are happening. I know that, in this virtual world, it's like, hey, we've got virtual meetups here, but a follow-up email within a couple of days. Like you don't want people to forget. They will sleep and forget. I am the worst at this. Sleep, forget. But you want to send an email, and it's okay to be, in my opinion, it's okay to be somewhat boilerplate with the, hey, it was great to see you at this thing. You indicated you wanted information. Here's our website. Here are our social media links, because as we've talked about, not everybody does all the things. So that also falls back on making sure that your website and your social media presences are up to date and accurate. But letting them know, like, hey, I'm available to chat if you want. If you feel comfortable giving a personal email address, or if you're the hospitaler, you're like, hey, you feel free to ask me questions. But you want to be informative, but you also want to open a dialogue, because you don't want to just be like, here you go, ball's in your court. You want there to be that like ability to continue to ask questions if they want to, at least in my experience, but I'm older.
I would agree with that. Orazio?
First
and
of
then
all,
Arthur?
100% would agree with that. And then two, and as part of having that, you want your social media and website up to date if you're directing them there. Also, if you're the local hospitaler or you're the person taking lead for a big demo, and if you don't have, like, sometimes groups haven't done these kind of things for a while, and they're really established and they have a good cadre of people that will help get things done, and they don't feel like they need to. And it's okay to have to show them the benefit of it. And you shouldn't have to, that doesn't have to build resentment, but a lot of the initial conversations, you can also ask the greater kingdom for help. Like there's a fair number of us that are excited about it and are willing to be a local resource and be like, maybe I don't know a whole lot about the local information, but I can talk to you about the SCA and then point you to the right places for the local information. Mm-hmm. So don't also burn yourself out as that person. I may have made some mistakes as the hospitaler trying to run with like 180 contacts after our first year at Sherwood. Luckily, a lot of them, we did it by them writing by hand, so there are a lot of spelling mistakes that I couldn't contact people because it was a bounce back. But just, you know, build both the digital and the like personnel backbone to be able to support, you know,
Get yourself a
pushing that
team
out.
you can bribe.
Yeah, what we do in Namron is, oh, you said you were interested in rapier. Here you go, rapier, Marshall, and that way the hospital doesn't have to deal with that one. Or
Yeah.
you're interested in archery. Here you go, archery, Marshall. It's
Yeah, but
not all on
sometimes
one
these
person.
touches are just like, here's my information, and you
Yeah.
don't have that. And
That's
absolutely
true.
reach out to your group, reach out to your kingdom. Like, you can reach out to others. It's okay to not do this on your own.
Absolutely.
And I think that we as people get in that rut of, oh, I have to do this thing, and now I'm buried in like Orazio said, 180 people to contact. It's okay to break it up and to delegate.
Yep. Arthur, did you have something to add? And then we'll go to Volka.
We've had a couple of demos, or we've been doing one at the Arlington Library for a couple of decades now. And one of the things we started doing is we had our big display of all the booths set up. And as the children went around and watched and saw what was going on, they had a sheet of paper with a bunch of shields on it. And they got somebody to stamp it or mark it. And at the end, they took it over to a table where we had calligraphy people, and they would put the child's name in calligraphy on the piece of paper. Says, you know, John Doe has started their journey of knowledge. And on the back of this, it had the contact information for all of the groups that were involved, the Steps, ELFC, Glassman. Okay. Yeah. Melanie also has a giveaway that she does where people sign up for things that have been donated. Some of the arts and crafts and sciences people, you know, belts and pouches and games and mugs and stuff. And when they sign up and give the information, they get their name into a drawing. And then she has the contact information to pass on. So that way this kid's taking this thing home with his name on it, putting it on the refrigerator, and they have the contact information. And, you know, that's not going to get lost for at least a week or two. Okay. But then then our hospitaler has the information. I'm giving you credit, Melanie. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's smart.
From the drawing.
I have our board right here.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we're working on getting those set up for Namron. Very cool. Thank you for sharing, Arthur. I appreciate that. Volka, did you have something to add?
Magnus has something right after.
Magnus, sorry.
Well, we both do. When you get your 180 contacts, it's not on you to personally email every single one of those people there. Are websites for that. So if you go to MailChimp, ideally have them enter this into like a digital thing, so like a Google form is what I used to use when I would recruit for my club at school. And then you can just highlight all their names, put them in MailChimp, send the generic like, hey, you know, you signed up for more information. Here's our website and all of our social media. Part of that is just the marketing funnel. You start with this many people, and eventually the ones who want to know more actually will contact you, and then you get to start good so like you do not have to really email all those people.
Yeah.
And send out a massive
Cool.
email to the website.
That's
They were
awesome.
learning pains, but yes, do that.
Yeah. I also learned the hard way to use a system like that.
Awesome. Okay, so Volka, tell me when, you know, as a heavy fighter, you and Magnus, you guys go to practice. How important is it for groups to have a good amount of loaner gear in various sizes for people to get them involved, people that are interested in fighting?
Magnus is the one that brings more newcomers. He's the social butterfly between the two of us. I can talk about weird shaped loaner gear first though. So like, I'm a girl, I'm very small. Magnus is an extremely average shaped heavy fighter. I'm 5'6". I don't weigh that much. Like so now Surf Loki, he's the night marshal. When I went to my first practice, he went home and got his own gear and brought it back so that I could fight in gear that fit me, because all of the loaner gear is for average sized SCA fighters, not little girls. And that's a whole different conversation about females and fighting, but you have to have stuff that fits people, because Otherwise, it would have been 3 months before I got to fight, and I would have quit at that point. Like, I joined the SCA to do athletic things. If that's what I joined for, you have to be able to let me do that. Not me, the person joining, to let them do that. So Magnus can talk more about bringing people in and getting them ready.
Okay.
To continue on the loaner, I think it's important to have at least 2 sets of loaner because two people are walking by, John and Michael are walking by, they're like, oh, cool, let's go look at this. Well, they were football players, they were rugby players, they were whatever players. Well, they might not want to just fight another fighter, they might want to go at each other. And so it's important, I think it's, when I started back in Seawinds, we had like 2 or 3 sets of loaner, and all of us that joined at the same time could go at each other. So I think it's important to have at least 2 sets. And you want to have more protective stuff. It's easier to make minimums, but I think it's worth the extra mile to put in a little effort to have a protective set, because then you can really be a little rougher, and not have to worry. So be more protected, more so, not have to worry about that. And what was about recruiting heavy fighters? Was that the next part?
Right. Well, I'm gonna talk about armor more because I have feelings about it.
Go ahead.
And those new fighters swinging each other are not trained. They could actually hurt each other unless minimum armor has got to be good minimum armor, because you don't want them hurting each other by accident because they don't realize how hard they can actually hurt.
Yep. Good point.
Like, it doesn't have to be this like beautiful 14th century kit or like $400 Lamar. Like, it can be plastic. Just get them on the field. Because like Elena and like Arakia said, like the act of doing something makes them more invested in it. But so Magnus is in graduate school, and I also just graduated, so we've been out of college for a little bit. I think we might be this year. We don't have money. Like, we do not have $400 to spend on a kit. My kit has been like years in the making. The only reason I've been able to afford it is because I've been able to order the pieces, and somebody smarter than me helped me put them together. So it didn't cost me as much money. So when you have millennials and Gen Z who want to come out and do things, if the first thing you tell them is, oh, you have to spend $200 before you can fight, like, they're gonna leave. Why would I can go fight over there for free with the lightsaber people. They have loaner gear. So a lot of people will be like, oh, they shouldn't have loaner gear, they should just drill. Like, drills are great. The drills are for people who already know that this is what they want to do. I'm not going to drill a skill that I don't know. So, for example, Fairness Cat is a Laurel in illumination and calligraphy. I don't practice illumination because that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to fight. Like, if I'm illuminating something, I'm going to go ahead and try and do my best as a one-off to see if I even like it. So it's the same thing as fighting. We can't expect them to drop $150 on a helmet if they don't even know if they like fighting. And then say they don't. So we had a guy at one of my practices who thought he was going to be a heavy fighter because he's very macho and he's a man. So he steps in the ring with me, and like I said, I'm not very big. I hit him, and he decided he did not like that. He was not going to be a heavy fighter. He wanted to go do rapier, which is fair because in my experience, rapier has been a lot less painful to me. It's faster game, but a lot less painful. And so luckily he had not spent a bunch of money on heavy gear, because then he went over to rapier where he needed to spend money on rapier gear, and he really enjoyed it, and that's what he still does. But you cannot just tell somebody who just graduated and doesn't have a job or has a minimum wage job, they have to drop a couple $100 before they can even participate, when the SCA's whole thing is like, oh, you don't even have to have a membership. Like, just come to the events you want. Practice is free unless you haven't bought this $100 worth of gear. Like, who can afford that? The only people I know who can afford that are engineers, and we need to recruit more than engineers.
So, the bar for entry in fighting, or if you're picking up a new art form, it's really high because of the cost. So it's important to have good loaner gear so that people could experience this and see if it's something that they really want to get into. And once they got to the point where they're more committed to whatever martial art form or martial activity or art form they want to do, then we, as experienced members of the SCA, have to make that path forward easier for them, to help them maybe put together armor or help them figure out cheaper ways to make their own stuff. Recruitment and retention, it's an ongoing process. We're trying to make it easier for newcomers to get involved in the game. And if we just kind of like throw them into it, and it's like you have to buy this, this, and this to get started, then a lot of people are just going to walk away. We have to do our best to try to, one, make the activity fun, and two, help people continue on practicing and getting better and leading them down the path to being further in the SCA.
Yeah, I tell people a lot that we don't have a recruitment problem in the SCA as much as we have a retention problem. We're really good about getting out there and meeting with people and getting to become the first thing. But the difficulty then is the next month, 2 months, 6 months after that, keeping them engaged and keeping them interested. Things like having, loaner gear, not just for fighting, but for, arts and stuff too. If I have someone who's interested in calligraphy and illumination, Onsero is actually one of the easiest kingdoms to get involved because we have a charter system. So we can get people up and going with illumination very quickly, where in other kingdoms, it's much higher barrier to so it can be a lot more intimidating to get started. And there's a lot of things like that in different art forms. Kumikimo is a great one. Give them some yarn and this little foam wheel or cardboard wheel, and they can get started and do it more and actually have something tangible to show for it. So the more that we can get people involved and get them started and have those starter materials available for them, the better and more successful we are at hooking them in and retaining them and helping them to slot into it.
Touch on one last thing about the heavy fighting. Going back to that is when you, I think I talked about it earlier. I think foam boppers, like it's something that's not very big in SCA outside of youth fighting, but I think it's a very big tool that's being underutilized because someone gets in heavy armor for the first time, say, and then they go a round or two, they're exhausted. Well, now you give them a foam sword. They don't need any, they don't need to have all the armor. They don't need to have all this stuff, and they can still, engage in a martial activity that's a lot of fun and a lot less painful, especially early on. When I started, there were several other people who started heavy fighting at the same time as me, and it was just something they were not interested in because it was just too hard to swing these wooden swords full force at each other. I think and I believe that they do different foam fighting now because they enjoy the lighter fighting style. I think if you start people off, especially people who don't have a huge background in say football or a heavy contact sport, being able to start at a light pace and still have an engaging, fun activity is very important. So I think foam bopper fighting something that's being very underutilized in the SCA culture.
There's a lot of rapier fighters who are actually heavy fighters that just didn't have a good pathway in. Like they have a heavy fighter's heart. They're like, you're not quite ready to hold a sword. Here's light fighting. So Arthur, you've been very patient, and then I have something after you.
Oh, that's fine. Just to tie in what Her Excellency said, this is a perfect way to explain to them when they want to fight. If they don't have stuff, well, here's the leather worker's guild. We'll teach you how to make your leather armor. Here's a clothier's guild. We'll teach you how to make your own clothing or something simple, a tea tunic. Let them experience the entire world and understand why you have to be not just a stick jock. You need to learn everything because this is how you're creating your world. You can learn how to do this and teach them about the barter system. Well, you don't think you can learn how to sew? Well, can you do this? And then if you do this, this person will sew for you. If you provide, let them expand and learn that, it's not the expensive, I'm out of college and can't afford anything. You can find an inexpensive way to do it and make it done. The only thing I'm going to say about the foam fighting is we have to be careful because we don't do foam fighting, and you're going to get people liking the foam fighting, and we're going to lose them to a LARP game.
Honestly, I'm okay with that. If they find that, they never want to make the transition and they go to the LARP side and had fun while they were here, the number of people that I've had, whether they found us through Meetup or at Sherwood, and it was actually, this is a tale of two stories. The number of people that engaged was like, oh, my friend does the SCA, and then having a good conversation. And then also the conversation of, oh, y'all seem pretty cool. Nothing like what I'd heard. because somebody had a bad experience with the SCA for whatever. And, you know, there's a lot of ways that can happen. There's ways where it's like not the group's fault, but there's ways where, like, if we're willing to let people come and go too, which hopefully looks like we won't have as much time to talk about, you know, people that aren't on the path or our path in the SCA, but allowing people to come and go in the group and that be amicable makes a big difference. And having more people be involved and, you know, having the manpower when you want to do those, hey, we're going to make loaner gear, no one's getting anything out of it, like you're not going to get this loaner gear, but the group's going to get something out of it. Well, if they're invested in the group, then they're going to have a better like experience in that. And then, and Melanie, you might be able to talk about this too, but one thing I wanted to mention was, like, if you're a hospitaler too, or you end up like, maybe you're not a recruitment minded person, but you end up being a seneschal or a quartermaster, and you're one of those places where old gear gets dumped, be willing to, like, when you get new loaner gear that's not easy to maintain and doesn't come in a good full set, sell that to your up-and-comers or give it away to them, and then maintain good, sturdy, cheap loaner gear and focus on making sure that you have good sets of like pickle barrel gear that are easy to maintain and you have plenty of, and then let people buy that 2/3 of a 14th century plate set off of the group and use that to buy more pickle barrel. Like, enable people to participate and not focus on, you know, elevating the appearance when you can just throw some tabards over them at their first couple events, and then they can participate in tournaments.
Yep.
But importantly, do that through the financial committee of your group and not out of the back of your truck at a park, because we've had that issue before.
Yeah, don't do
Yikes. Yeah, don't do that.
Melanie, did you want to expand on that?
Yeah, we actually, in Elsie, we got a huge donation from a family that they used to be merchants in the SCA, and they stopped after the mother-in-law passed away. And so they donated all of their garb that they were selling, and it was like 10 totes of garb. And so we picked through it, and we have a rehoming process that with a lot of our newcomers, I give them garb and say, keep it. Once you're done with it or you have your own, pass it on to someone else. And so same with some of our armor and all, we have a major pass it on, just keep the karma going in the SCA, and it keeps them around a little bit more, because they're like, oh, I got my first piece of garb or my first piece of armor. And so it's been real nice. They always get so excited.
Very cool. That's awesome.
I do have something I'd like to throw in here. I think it's important to note that whenever we're making space for newcomers, we also need to make space for people that want to do casual play. Not everyone that crosses our path is going to be a die-hard, go every weekend, have a persona, 14th century garb, down to the ground thing. And as long as we have that elitist attitude of that's the goal, then we're going to lose people by the droves. If we don't allow people to put on a T-tunic and their tennis shoes and come out and swing a boffer sword with their kids, then we're losing a lot.
Yeah, 100% agree. Volka and then Ivo.
We tend to be very, I guess the nice way to say it is judgy whenever it comes to newcomers, but we're very intent about what we believe in. But newcomers, you know, they can't afford all the things that we have over the years acquired. So we just need to be more encouraging and nurturing instead of being harsh with them whenever they don't meet our standards. We need to account for people being new, and we need to stoke that enthusiasm instead of finding different ways to stifle it.
Yep.
Another big thing is like teaching. So like when I was new, everyone would be like, oh, you know, just throw a T-tunic on. And like someone gave me a T-tunic. But then, like I said, I joined a fight. So I went to my first fought, now it's covered in sweat. So I needed more than one T-tunic, and I know a lot of people who are younger feel this way too. It's a burden for me to continually go to someone and be like, I need 5 tunics. I need 5 more tunics. I keep ripping my tunics. So the ability just to teach. So like Countess Torin, she's actually here, taught me how to do a T-tunic. It's like, I made this one. I made that one. And it's been super helpful for me for new fighters where they're like, oh, I don't know, like this is so scary. I'll just be like, look, if you can help off the cost of the linen, because I'm poor too, I will make it for you, or I'll teach you. Like, don't worry, we'll get you set up. And kind of the same thing, I see Doña Elizabeth and her husband would just throw me in their car for events. They'd be like, you don't have gas money, that's fine, get in the car. Like, you don't have guard, we'll put you in one of Floki's old tunics. Just like, get in the car, we'll get you there. So a lot of that with newcomers is like, just get them in the car. If they don't have their own car, I know we said don't talk to strangers, but hopefully at this point we've used the Discord that Horacio talked about, and they trust us now. So just, check in before events. Be like, oh, are you going? Because like, we have extra space. We always stop at Whataburger. Like, oh, you don't have guard? That's fine. We have extra. Like, come on, let's just go.
Also, I feel like there's frequently a dichotomy of like you either have to completely provide for these newcomers, which can be a huge burden, or you're not involved. It's like we even in everything as we seek excellence, we get exclusionary about how you do it. And that's like, there's opportunities, and not everyone has this opportunity, but like say, Kofina and I frequently, we are, as many people are, magpies for fabric. But so we'll watch fabric stores like, oh wow, we can get this bolt for 125 between the two of us. It's not that bad, but it's like it comes out to $6 a yard for linen. That's something that I can, hey, newcomer, take this for $7 a yard. And it's like, none of this is through the organization, but it's like, I can make this more accessible for you so you don't go to Joann's and try and buy this for $20. But like just the little things, you don't have to necessarily like give away everything, but if there's opportunities where through the connections that we already have, make that more accessible to new people, then they're able to sort of get skin in the game a lot faster.
Yep.
The biggest help to me was being taught how to do things. So like I was taught how to make a tunic and pants. Now I don't have to go like begging around for my garb. I was taught how to make a sword, so I don't have to depend on my friends, every time I need something. And that'll help newcomers build up their kit, their soft kit, their garb, everything a lot faster if you can teach them. Like, it is great to just say like, oh, I'll do it for you, don't worry, but it's even better to help them become self-sufficient.
Definitely. Agreed.
Build that community.
It also builds up their confidence and their buy-in.
Yep.
If anybody like is wondering why, groups like Shadowlands and Moonshadow are always so successful, it's because this is what they like for the purposes of survival. This is what they have to do. And so that's why there's so many people that come out of Shadowlands like myself and then keep playing, because in order to even get going, Rodri and Caitlin can't buy garb for everyone. So they say, here's some cheap fabric, we're gonna make a thing, and then everyone's made a thing and people get excited. And also they're really good about reinforcing and not like gatekeeping the quality of the thing. It's like, you made a thing and that's freaking awesome.
Exactly.
Letting small wins be big victories.
Definitely. All right, guys. Well, it is actually 4 after 8. So I don't want to hold us a whole lot longer, but did anybody have any? I know we didn't get to all of our topics. I apologize to the panel members, but I think we still had some really good discussions.
This is our fault too.
It's okay. You're fine. Do we have any final thoughts? Ivo, I see your hand is up.
I just want to point out one thing when you're steering the younger crowd in in whatever direction you think is appropriate. I'll just be blunt about it, and this is from my experience in Moonshadow across the North. I think we all know that there's always going to be that one person who just doesn't get it, and they don't fit in or they don't pick up social cues. The success rate in recruiting them into the College of Heralds is disturbingly high. Tell me I'm wrong, I dare you.
You're not wrong.
But I will say this, and I say this in all honesty, and I'm going to pick on one person. I met Thomas DeGroot on the archery range, and he responded very well in an archery range because it's a military format and it had specific rules, and there was no subtlety about it. And he was very uncomfortable in social settings other than that. He just, and nothing against him, he said as much. He discovered Senna, and you'd think this Catholic had found the second Bible. I'm not joking. And this is not a only example. So just throwing that out there. Legit, you run into these younger guys who don't pick up the social cues, which I didn't at that age either. The College of Heralds may be very appealing to them. I've said.
As Elena drinks out of her heraldry mug.
Yeah.
Look, let's be real. If you're in the SCA, you're already a weirdo. Like, we already know this.
Exactly. I mean, I have no illusions of the fact that I'm a weirdo.
No. I've been playing 22 years. Let's be fair. There's weird, and then there's College of Heralds weird. It's a different metric.
It's just a subset.
Exactly.
A very deep subset.
I think there's
All right.
enough room in the SCA for anybody to find their path. That's what we need to let them know, that there are more than one way to play at one level. Find what's comfortable for them and find what you like and do it, and then they're going to be happy, and then they're going to stay.
Yep.
Regardless of age.
Yes, absolutely.
Is that implying somebody to this old man here?
No, it's not even that, Arthur. It's more that we need to make sure that we're making that room for the kid that's 8, 10, 12 years old, that kid that's in their early 20s just in or out of college, as well as those folks who are getting in 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. I like the spectrum of.
And we have a lot of retirees in our group, and if they can bring in new retirees who have a lot of time on their hands and want to participate in all these various crafts, and even if they want to pick up fighting or archery, we've got a guy who's near 80 who's trying to become our new archery marshal. Like, that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you guys very much, all our panel members and everyone else who attended and shared your knowledge and thoughts. And I think this was very successful. So I will get the video posted, and maybe we'll do something similar sometime in the future if we have other topics that we think of that we want to cover, or, continue to cover some of the ones that we didn't get to tonight. So.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.